Excuse me. Song of Solomon, chapter 3, verses 1 through 5 is what we'll consider this morning. Song of Solomon, chapter 3, verse 1 through 5. I have entitled this poem, Separation, the Test of True Love. Separation, the Test of True Love. It is poem number 9 of 23 poems that I have divided the Song of Solomon into. The Song of Solomon is not like, in its literary style, it is not like the book of Ruth, the book of Esther, the book of Job. Books like those have very clearly defined characters, very distinctive dialogue, and a storyline whereby there's no doubt in the reader's mind as you read through the book of Ruth or Esther, any of those books, that it's telling a story. You know what the story's about. You know the theme of it, the plot of the story. And the dialogue is clearly defined. You know who is speaking to whom about what. The literary style of the Song of Solomon is not that way. It is a song. It is poetry. It is not a drama. It does not tell a story. Some have tried to, with their opinion, to force it to tell a story. Some say that it is the story of Solomon and the Shulamite, the love story between these two, and everything in the book more or less has to do with them and their love of each other. Others will insert, that the story is a love triangle. There's Solomon, the Shulamite, and a shepherd boy. There's just so many varying opinions about the book, about what it's trying to say and what it's telling. Some take it completely as an allegory. The Jewish people, in their books, their Tanakh, they don't even translate it. They actually give it a story of an allegory between Israel and her relationship to God. So there are so many different takes on the book, and you have to bring your opinion to it if you're going to take it allegorically or if you're going to take it as a drama. You'll find yourself having to interject your opinion. And really what we want is, thus saith the Lord. What is real about it? What can we know? And so if you'll take the book, as I have taken it, to be not a drama, but rather a collection of poems which have a general theme that runs through the book, and there are some characters, not to mean that there are not characters. Solomon is mentioned repeatedly. The Shulamite is mentioned in the book. These are there, but as a whole, as a collection of poems, it teaches us about that relationship, which is the supreme relationship between any two individuals. That relationship of love between a man and a woman. It is also that high esteem of which we are to regard marriage, and the relationship between Christ and His church and Christ and the redeemed. That is the focus of this book. And as we can learn the lessons it teaches us concerning the relationship between a husband and wife, a man and woman in love, and how that is to be held in the highest of regard, we can then understand the relationship that Christ longs to have with us as His church and with us as His redeemed. All right, so we'll be applying the lessons that we learn from this, not only to marriage, but also to our relationship with Christ. And that's my favorite part, really, of the book. My favorite part is how it applies to, not only to my marriage, but how it applies to my relationship with Jesus Christ. How close and dear that relationship is and should be. All right, in this section we have the separation, the test of love. Let's read our text. This is verse 1 through 5. This is where I believe the poem breaks. Beginning verse 1 says, By night on my bed I sought him whom my soul loveth. I sought him, but I found him not. I will rise now and go about the city in the streets and in the broad ways. I will seek him whom my soul loveth. I sought him, but I found him not. The watchmen that go about the city found me to whom I said, Saw ye him whom my soul loveth? It was but a little that I passed from them, but I found him whom my soul loveth. I held him and would not let him go until I had brought him into my mother's house and into the chamber of her that conceived me. I charge you, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, by the roes and by the hinds of the field, that ye stir not up nor awake my love till he please. All right, we're going to have to arm ourselves with some other scriptures in order to have a full understanding of the meaning of this one. Just take the first verse. By night on my bed I sought him, whom my soul loveth. I sought him, but I found him not. Now, we have to make a decision here. Is she talking about a dream, or is this reality? Is she awake? Turn your Bibles over to chapter 5, verse 2. Chapter 5, verse 2 will be the 14th poem of this 23 contained in this book. Chapter 5, verse 2, look at the first opening words of verse 2. This is Song of Solomon 5 and 2. I sleep, but my heart waketh. Do you see that? I sleep, but my heart waketh. That sounds like a dream to me, doesn't it you? She's asleep, but her heart's awake. That sounds like a dream to me. So there, I believe we have a clear-cut case of a dream. Now that dream, as we get to it, has a little darker side because it's more like a nightmare for her. As you look at the close of that, she gets wounded by the keepers of the walls. Took away my veil, they smote me, the watchman smote me, and so forth, verse 7. That dream has a rather dark side. It's kind of like a nightmare. We'll get to that later. But I want you to notice that this section, this is going to be a dream. And it sets pretty clearly, I sleep, but my heart waketh. Now let's go back to our text, chapter 3, verse 1. By night on my bed I sought him whom my soul loveth. I sought him, but found him not. Now, is this a dream or not? Does she mean that on her bed she fell asleep and she was having a dream about seeking the one she loves? Could this be the possibility? Or might it be that she has gone to bed worried about being separated from her loved one, or the one she loves, and she's having a sleepless night? She's tossing and turning, and in her mind, she is seeking for the one she loves. I feel rather drawn to that being the case, that this is not a dream as occurring in this text, that she has gone to bed, and in her mind, she's taking inventory of her memory, of her thoughts, and she's seeking where could her loved one be. He is not with her, and she does not know where he is. She is parted from the one that she loves. I want to focus in on the phrase, whom my soul loveth. Now, in the very center of the verse, my soul loveth. The use of the word soul there indicates her whole being. With all that she is, she loves him. With her heart, with her soul, with all of her. She loves him above anything else, or anyone else anyway. She loves this man, and she longs to be with him, and being parted from him, she is saddened by that. And so the night has fallen, and she has gone to bed, but I believe she's doing the seeking in her mind. Now I want you to get this relationship she has. She does not like the fact that she is parted from him. She doesn't like to be separated from him. She likes to be together. Brother and Sister Waters, I noticed a while ago when y'all were singing, y'all were sharing a book. I noticed little things like that. Are there not but one book in your pew? Are there several books there? But y'all shared one anyway. I think they like each other. I noticed that y'all sat right next to each other. You didn't sit at one in the pew and one at the other. We used to go to church with a couple named the Wedgeworths. Do you remember them, Janie? It's an old country church. Didn't have padded pews. They had wooden pews. She sat on this end, and he sat on that end. They were in their late 80s back then, and she'd sit on this end, and she'd put a stack of songbooks right beside her on the pew. And when she'd look down the pew and see him sleeping, she'd slide a songbook down the pew and hit him with it. He'd wake up. It was just a two-row, two sets of pews, and Janie and I were on this side, and they sat on the other side. And I sat kind of behind them, and it just kind of tickled me. I'd watch them, and she'd look at the preacher, and she'd just keep looking over there at him, and directly there'd go that songbook, slide down the pew, zoom, bump into that other songbook she done sent that way to wake him again. I said, why don't you just sit beside him? The elbow works a lot, doesn't it, Sister Waters? The elbow works a lot better. Just keep him awake. Just dig that elbow into his rib every now and then. This woman in our text is having anxiety. I believe she can't sleep. And in her mind, she's wondering, where is he? Where is he? What's happened to him? What's become of him? Is he all right? And in her mind, she's trying to remember, did he say where he was going? Does anyone know where he's gone? Why hasn't he been to see me? They have been parted for whatever amount of time, and he's not around, and she has no idea where he is. There's no cell phones, no telephones of any kind, no telegraph. There's no way he can contact her other than to send a messenger, but none have come, and she knows nothing. And her anxiety about where is he? And so in her mind, the seeking begins as she lies on her bed, anxious because he's gone, worried that he's not with her. Could something have happened to her? And I can imagine all kinds of dreadful things coming into her mind about what may have become of him. All the worries that come with love and caring for someone so dear. You're anxious and worried about them when you're separated from them. And this is the case with her. It's really a good test of love, isn't it? Couples that are married here, you married couples, listen to me. When you're parted from one another for any long extended period of time, does it affect you? Are you sad? Are you longing to be with each other? Do you really don't like to be separated? A test of love has to do with separation. I've known couples that just love to be apart. A man I work with, I've told y'all about him, I think, in this series, who he takes his vacation. You get 3 weeks of vacation a year. He takes his vacation and goes and does his own thing, and his wife takes her vacation and goes at a completely different time and does something all a week. There'll be a week apart. So in effect, they were 5 weeks a year apart from each other, and they just loved it. I'm not so sure about that relationship. If you don't like being with the person you're married with, you need to work on that. When that relationship is held in highest regard, you'll want to be with the one you love. You'll really desire to be with the one you love. When you're parted, you worry about it. I wonder if she's okay. I wonder if he's okay. I hope he got there safely. In our day of telephones and cell phones, Jane, you got a cell phone? I got a cell phone. Give you a call and see if you're all right. I can do that. I even got my cell phone. What is this? It's got to be against. There must be a scripture against this. A preacher having a cell phone in his pocket while he's preaching. It's silenced. Yeah, it's silenced. So it'd be terrible for it to go off while I was preaching. But we have electronic media today where we can kind of keep in touch with each other. When we're parted, we can check on one another. But back then, they have that luxury that just worry. When you're parted from someone you love so dearly that you worry about them. You worry when you're not with them. Are they all right? Is everything okay? Are they safe? When will they be back? Loneliness sets in, and sorrow and worry. And that's what comes with true love. You don't want to be separated from the one you love. You like to be together. And young people, as you're dating before marriage, if it gets to where y'all just cannot be apart, well, you ought to consider just getting married. Go ahead and get married. And I believe that's where we're headed in this text, as we're going to see, that she longs to be with him all the time. And so we'll get to that in a moment. So by night in the bed, she seeks him. She thinks about where he could be, trying to reason with herself. And never through this whole process of the night can she figure out where he is and be satisfied in her mind as to his location. Well, maybe he's at his uncle's house. He goes there frequently. Maybe that's where he's at. But in her mind, she can't settle on that. Maybe he's with his father, or maybe he's at the sheep shearers, or maybe they're winnowing grain, or whatever the case might be. Wherever his job has taken him, or whatever has come between them, and they are parted from one another, she just can't stand the thought of him not being with her. And so in her mind, she is laboring and seeking him. Let's talk about the relationship between Christ and the believer, the redeemed. It should be our desire to always want to be with the Lord. Psalmist David wrote Psalm number 22. All of you are familiar with Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. You all know this one. But Psalm 22 should be just as familiar. Do you remember how verse 1 goes in Psalm 22? My God, why hast thou forsaken me? You ever felt that way? You ever felt like Lord's nowhere around? My troubles have whelmed me. That I have burdens poured upon me. The waves and billows of trouble and sorrow have just whelmed my soul, and it seems like God's nowhere around. But don't you love the promise when he said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee? He is always with us. Sometimes we don't feel like we're close to him. But it's like that joke I've told y'all before, the couple driving down the road. He's sitting in the driver's seat, and she's sitting over against the door on the other side of the. And they come upon a couple that's sitting right beside each other as they're going down the road. His arms around her, and he says, and the woman says, we used to be like that. We used to sit right up next to each other. You used to put your arm around me, and he's behind the driving wheel. And he says, I didn't go anywhere. He's still where he was always been. You know, she's the one sitting over there. That's our relationship with God sometimes. We get away from him, but he's always there, longing for us to come back, longing for us to return. Don't you want to be with the Lord? Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I in their midst. I like coming to this place where God's people gather together because he's here in a very special way. I'm sold out on that. I believe he's sitting in here amongst us right now as we've gathered to worship him. Long to have that. And when you're parted from him, you long to be back with him again. She takes action, verse 2. I will rise now and go about the city, in the streets, in the broad ways. I will seek him whom my soul loveth. I sought him, but I found him not. Now she takes action. She gets a plan. Her sleepless night has worried her. Where's her loved one? The one she loves so dear. She just got to know. I've got to find him. I've got to have him. And she's not patient to just sit and wait for his return. She's got to take action. She can't stand this emotion anymore of being parted. She's going to do something about remedying this. I'm going to go and find him. I'm going to be with him, whatever it takes. And so she takes this dangerous action of rising and going about the city. Now, a city's not necessarily the best place to be wandering around. A city is, by its nature, a very populated area. And in the book of the Song of Solomon, with the constant references to the daughters of Jerusalem, and we see that even in this. Do you see in verse 5, O ye daughters of Jerusalem? The city she's talking about is Jerusalem, and there are a lot of people in Jerusalem. It's a very highly populated area, especially in the time of Solomon. Lots of people there, and any number of things could have happened to him in the streets of that city. Never mind her as she wanders about the streets of the city. But she's got to do something, and she's willing to even endanger her own life, her own well-being, to go out into the streets and to find her. And so she makes the decision, I'm going to rise, I'm going to looking for him, I'm going to find him. She can't tolerate this emotion anymore, this worry and sorrow that she has over their separation. She's going to go find him, make sure he's okay, get back together with him. She don't like this separation that they have. She wants to be together with him again. So she begins in the streets. These are the narrow roads, the narrow passageways through the city. She begins to look up and down the streets. And then she mentions the broad ways. This would be the areas where people would gather in mass, where there would be a lot of people gathering. The broad ways, by that very indication, is a wide place where a crowd can gather. It's kind of hard for crowds to gather on narrow streets, but in broad ways, they have places for that. And so in Jerusalem, she would also seek those places where people would gather. And so she's going to look for him. And she goes about the city making the search for him. But look, I sought him, but I found him not. She didn't find him. Can you imagine her wandering up and down the streets and through the byways and the broad places, looking all around? She's looking for him and looking for him to no avail. She just cannot find him. Cannot find him. The frustration she's feeling, it's turned into panic. She really longs to be with him. That's how strong this emotion is of love. She'll do anything for that person. There's a preacher that was in California, Dr. Hill. He preached his wife's funeral. It's an amazing sermon, and I would encourage any of you who have internet access to do a search on Dr. Hill's sermon at his wife's funeral. But there he tells of his wife, so worried about her husband. He was being persecuted at the time. She went out one morning and cranked his car and drove it around the block because she was afraid someone had planted a bomb in it. She wanted it to blow up on her, not on him. That's how much strong their love was. She would give her life for him. And that's the kind of bond we're talking about. One so strong that you'd give your own life for that person. That's a strong love. She's put herself in danger. She's gone out, but in her panic, she has not found him. Verse 3. The watchmen that go about the city found me. To whom I said, saw ye him whom my soul loveth? Now in our short poem here, the details are not given. Watchmen of the city, let's explain that term for a moment. If you look through the scriptures, you'll find a lot about watchmen. Ezekiel tells us much about them. Watchmen were set up on the walls and up on the towers around a city. And the very idea of a watchman is to be on his watch, to be on the guard. He would look and see if there were any trouble coming, any approaching dangers, perhaps an invading army, so that the city would be forewarned. But the watchmen also would patrol the streets. Their job was not limited just to the walls to watch out, but they also kind of watched on things in the streets. They'd make sure there was no trouble brewing inside the city that the city needed to be warned about. If a fire broke out within the city, the watchmen would catch that and they would pass the word so that all hands would come out and to escape the fire and to put out the fire. But watchmen had various duties, and part of it was to patrol the city. And she has come upon some watchmen who are doing their job. She asked them, have you seen the one I love? And I suspect she gave them a description, perhaps his name. His name is this, he looks like this. Over in chapter 5, we get at the end of that dream she has in chapter 5, around verse 10 on, she gives a detailed description of him, a very, very detailed description of the one she loves. But here, we're not given privy to this information, just that the guards found me, the watchmen found me, and I asked them, have you seen him? Now, whether they saw him or not, it's not clear, but there's a possibility that they did, and that they pointed her in the direction. Yeah, we saw a guy looked like that, headed down such and such a street, or down a certain place, because it goes on to tell us that she finds him. Here the watchmen do her no harm, whereas in the next dream that we'll be considering in chapter 5, they wound her. There's some serious problems happening in that dream. Here they do not seem to mistreat her at all, and it would not be the case that the watchman of a city would be such that would harm a person walking the streets. They're really there for the safety of the people, and so it would be against their character to harm anyone, except those that might be into mischief, and they certainly would arrest them. All right, back to our text. It says, verse 4, it was but a little that I passed from them, but I found him whom my soul loveth. She found him. There he is. Perhaps the watchman had pointed her in the right direction, but it wasn't long after she had her encounter with them that she found the one she loves. And what joy must have filled her heart to see him doing well and to see him again. Her eyes filled with tears perhaps of joy, and I can just picture her running up to him and embracing him, telling him of her worry since she did not know where he had gone. I held him, she said, and would not let him go. She's not going through that experience again. She's had worry enough. She's ready to not suffer that anymore. I don't care what it takes. I'm staying with you. She's hanging on to him. I guess if she had had a handcuff, she'd handcuffed herself to him. She don't want to part from him ever again. Would not let him go until I had brought him into my mother's house and into the chamber of her that conceived me. All right, turn your Bibles to Genesis 24:67. Genesis 24:67. Genesis 24:67. This is the closing of the chapter, the last verse of this chapter. It is where Rebekah and Isaac are come together. Sarah has is the mother of Isaac. Sarah has died. Isaac was waiting for this servant of Abraham to return and bring Rebekah to him, his wife to him, the one that he sent off for. So this has come to pass. And look at verse 67. It says, and Isaac brought her, this was Rebekah, into his mother Sarah's tent. Do y'all see that? Remember, Sarah's dead. But he brought her to his mother Sarah's tent and took Rebekah, and she became his wife. And he loved her. And Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. Now, I want you to see a phrase there that's kind of important to our interpretation and understanding of what we read in our Song of Solomon text. He brought her to his mother Sarah's tent. Do you see that? Now let's go back to our text. Here in this verse, it said, I held on to him and would not let him go until I had brought him into my mother's house and into the chamber of her that conceived me. Now, it would be a house in this case because this is Jerusalem. There are not any tents set up in Jerusalem except for the Feast of Tabernacles when they would build booths up on their rooftops and in their yards. But wouldn't find a tent there. They weren't living in tents. But the concept is the same. I want you to see that the possibility that this is talking about marriage, the consummation of a marriage, that she's decided after what she's been through over separation anxiety that she is going to take action to see that doesn't happen again. She wants to be with him always and forever the rest of her life, until parted by death. She's ready to marry this one. And it's unusual for that culture, she takes the action to search him out, to cling onto him, and to bring him to her mother's chamber to marry him. You know, generally in that society, it really didn't work that way. Generally, the man was the aggressor in the pursuit of the marriage. That the husband and the father and mother of each of them normally arranged the marriage. That was the way it usually worked, and they really didn't have much say in it. And then they were brought together in marriage, and then they became one. But she takes the leading role. She wants to get married. She wants to have this relationship become one of man and wife. And so she pursues that by taking him to this place where they might become one, and they might be forever for married until parted by death, and always be together. This is what she has desired. This anxiety of separation has driven her to know I've got to be with this one. If I can't stand to be away from him, I've got to be married to him. I've got to be his. And we're going to make this official. And so they become man and wife. I believe in this text is based on that reference to the coming into the tent of Sarah. Now verse 5 It says, I charge you, O my daughters of Jerusalem, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, by the roes and the hinds of the field, that ye stir not up, nor wake my love till he pleases. Now this is the King James version of this. It's not the best translation for this. If you'll notice, the word my is in italics in your King James Bible. Your more modern translations, New King James, NIV, and New American Standard, and so forth, will talk about this meaning love. Don't wake love till it please. And that's really the best translation. Don't wake love till it pleases. We've had this warning before that love is not for the immature. Love is not for children. Children should not be forced into it. They should not play around with it. It really should be for those who are mature and ready for that relationship. Because love, as we learned in our last text, is a powerful thing. And here you can see some of the power of it, because it can cause great anxiety and jealousy and a lot of mental stress upon you when you fall in love with someone. It is a dangerous, powerful emotion and not to be trampled with lightly. So don't wake it until it please. I told my children, my daughters, as they were growing up, that I was not going to allow them to date until about 18? Till they were 18. And the reason why I would wait then is because at the age of 18, they could call the sheriff's department and have me arrested if kidnapped them or something, right? By the laws of the state of Texas, I couldn't deal with them anymore. But I didn't want them dating until they were old enough and mature enough for that. And so they had no dates until they were grown. Until they were 18. I don't know how old was Stacy when she married. I don't know. She was 20 maybe, huh? 19? Wait. Put love off. Don't mingle with it until you're ready. It is too powerful and it's too powerful of an emotion to mess with. Too many people have committed suicide and murder and all kinds of other things because of love. Wait till you're ready for it. And then, when it's right, it's right. It's time for you to get married and to start commit and live your lives together. And the best reason to marry is for love. Without that love emotion, remember that she kept saying, whom my soul loveth, without that love emotion, your marriage will not make it. You've got to love one another. That's what saves a marriage. That's what keeps a marriage going. That love you have for your spouse and your spouse has for you. It has to be a mutual love, one for another. And then all your problems can be worked out if you'll show love one for another. I want to talk to you about, in closing of our sermon this morning, about our relationship with Christ. Remember, we are the bride of Christ, not only as His church, but also we're the bride of Christ as Christ is the bride of, or the groom of all those who are the redeemed. Your relationship with Christ should be held on that high esteem, that high level, that you would always want Him near. You always want His presence. And when separated from Him, you do anything to get back the joy of your salvation, to get back in fellowship with Him again, to draw close to Him. It says much about your relationship with your spouse if you spend time with your spouse. Reggie's got his arm around Sandra over here. Did you see that? Reggie's got his arm around Sandra. Shh. They're sitting up front too where everybody can see. I think he likes her. I think he loves her. Sure seems to have that appearance. How you are with your spouse, do you really like being with each other? It says a whole lot about your relationship, doesn't it? How much time do you spend with the Lord? That says a whole lot about your relationship too. I'm not talking about only time in worship of Him, formal, deliberate worship of Him in the house of the Lord, but also during the week. How much time do you spend with Him in prayer? How much time do you spend in reading the Bible so that He may speak to you? If your relationship is right with the Lord Jesus Christ, if it's the song of songs, you'll want to spend all the time you possibly can with your Lord and Savior. Get that back. Get back the joy of your salvation. Draw close to Him again.